Not an
Yeah,
asset.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But what are some of the challenges you face?
I mean, every agency has their own individual set of unique challenges. The challenges that I face in my jurisdiction are different than San Francisco. They're different than Oakland. They're different than San Jose,
Mm-hmm.
or even smaller cities. Everybody has their own unique set.
I see.
For me specifically, we're dealing with the staffing crisis. That's everywhere. So we're learning how to juggle more on each person's plate, which a lot of us just tends to be we're just working more hours because
Yeah.
there's nobody there. So that's one big challenge.
I've had an incident to talk about that. We had a break-in a while back when we were in remodeling, and they showed up and they're like, "There's only 8 of us from this road all the way to there. It's taken 15 minutes for a response." I'm like, "Wow!" So staffing shortage is a serious thing in the police department right now. Correct?
Yeah, it is
like
a
the
huge
worst.
thing because in some departments are really struggling with it. And it gets to a point where if you only have maybe 2 officers or 3 officers for a medium-sized city at any given time, maybe on night shift, they have to prioritize what's more important. A call of somebody getting injured right now, they have to go to it. So a call about a break-in that happened
Yeah.
maybe a week ago, hey, we can't get there
Sorry.
right now. We
Yeah.
have to take care of the priority
Yeah.
calls first. And then as soon as we can get to you. And
Like
then
a violence incident or something that's
Exactly.
more important.
that's been because it comes to a level of customer service where you call us because your business just got broken into. You want someone to respond right away.
Yeah.
Totally get it.
But
And
it's tangible. It's like, hey, okay, so you got broken glass, but down the street, someone's beating their wife.
Exactly,
which
like-
is like horrible.
that's where
But
we
it's
have
real,
to go
right?
first. Correct. And then if we get bogged down on those calls, that's more time than we're not responding to your vehicle break-in or your store break-in.
Yeah.
And then that's a challenge because you want to help out everybody give the same level of service, but sometimes when staffing is too low and the calls come in at the same time, you do have to prioritize. And it can be
crazy.
difficult explaining to people why our response takes so long. And most people are understanding. They realize, hey, my window got broken. They took minor property, but nobody got hurt. And I realized that
But that's not the police's fault.
it's
It's really not. It's not like you're sitting there eating a donut, not coming to the scene of the crime. You know what I mean?
Correct.
You're dealing with something, and someone else is dealing with something, and so forth. And there's a limited amount of you guys for such a big area. Why do you think there's a staffing shortage? Do you think it's because of the funding, or is it people don't want to be a police officer anymore, given what they've seen?
Yeah,
with the defund police movement, which is ridiculous.
that goes back years. And for this whole thing for me started especially for here, because our challenges in the Bay Area are different than maybe other parts of California. For example, Fresno doesn't have a staffing crisis. People there still want to be police officers. They have to turn people away.
I didn't know that. Oh, good.
But it's a different type of community that has a different view of law enforcement than maybe some people do in the Bay Area. That's not good or bad. It's just different.
Different.
But what you're seeing is in Silicon Valley specifically, if you know as a 20-something-year-old that I can get a job at Google and make $250,000 a year and just sit on a computer all day, I get free food, I get free dry cleaning. Google, we just
There's
use
showers in a gym.
Exactly. Why would I want to put my life on the line?
Or lose my job or my life or go to jail trying to stop a criminal.
When I could make, a lot more doing this sitting in the comfort of a big building and not have to work.
Building.
Correct. Why would I do that? And then you start seeing the things on the news that influences young people saying, "Oh, I don't want to do that job. Look what they're doing on TV." Legislation gets passed that it's explained to people in one way. And if you're somebody who's thinking about the career, you're like, wow, that sounds like a tough thing. Why would I want to put myself through that? And then the advent of technology, I'm not blaming anybody for this. It's difficult to be a parent. I can only imagine, if you have a couple of kids and both people are working, but a byproduct of that can be if kids are getting raised on iPads and iPhones because the parents are so busy, hey, take the iPad, play Angry Birds. Like, I have work to do because you need to make money for the family.
Sure.
Over time, if the child gets used to being on the screen, they're not developing the social skills that maybe you or I developed at the same age.
Yeah.
So when somebody comes into an interview and they can't even make eye contact with the people who are doing the interview, everything is down here. Well, now, even if you answer the questions correctly, if you come in for an interview,
You're not an in-person type.
how can we, we're seeing, okay, if you can't even make eye contact with us, what are you going to do when you have to go to that call of a domestic violence?
And analyze the body and the
Exactly.
mind and
Because
the
people
eye.
know we're all humans.
Yep.
We can read body language. You're the person that you have to go talk to is reading you. And if you have bad posture and you're looking down,
Something.
it's it can be an officer safety hazard because they can say this person, I just can't take him seriously for some reason.
It's not authoritative. It's also not something's off. I mean, I feel it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and authoritative, it doesn't mean being an a-hole. It just means that you can carry yourself well. So if I'm talking to you, okay, there's a respect there. Let me listen to what's going on.
Police officers, very similar to like a coach on a team, in my opinion. You know what I mean? If like, let's say a girls' soccer game, if the coach is like this and he's not going to understand what's going on, people are calling you to help resolve a big problem, right? They're solving a problem or they're calling 911, so to speak. So if you show up, you have to be presentable to do that. It's such a tough thing to be turned on all the time as well, because what people don't realize is also, and I think it's important to say on this podcast, is you guys are human. You go through stuff that everyone else goes through. You could have an argument with your girlfriend. You could have an argument with your wife. You could have a sick kid. You could, all these weird emotions that go into a daily routine, but yet you still have to suit up and care for someone else, almost like a nurse or an individual of that profession. It's so honorable, in my opinion, that you do that. A lot of people that are sitting at Google, we're ragging on Google today, but a lot of people are sitting at, behind a desk job anywhere, Google, Facebook, here, wherever. They may not have to interact with anybody that day. They could have a bad day and kind of go under the rug, so to speak. But as police, you got to go to the scene.
I'll give you one example. This happened several years ago. You know those big steel transmission towers for PG&E? They're along the freeway, the big towers that carry the transmission lines. Somebody climbed up one and he wasn't in the right state of mind. Yeah. So we get the call, we go out there and I'm trying to talk to him and he's not in his right state of mind. So
mentally challenged person.
That person. And then plus you're trying to talk at this great distance because he's way up there. Mm-hmm. And we think we're reaching a point where, okay, let's climb down slowly so we can get you the help that you need. For whatever reason, a switch flipped in his head and he thought it'd be a good idea to walk on the wire. So as soon as he touched the wire, you can only imagine what that scene was. And then everything just fell down into a backyard. So I'm the first one to go over the fence and I have no clue what I'm going to see.
Yeah.
And
because it's like, this is not 110. This is voltage beyond.
It's like a couple 100,000 volts or something like, it was something ridiculous, but you just know you have to go. You got to go to that scene. You don't know what you're going to see. You don't have time to say, okay, if I do this, if I see this, you just got to go. And I'm the first one to go over the fence and he was still alive. So I had to tell people he's still alive. He's missing some things, but he's alive. So we had to get over there. We had to call the airlift helicopter, get him in there, stabilize him, fire, they do their own, they do their whole thing. And then he gets in the helicopter and then he's off to whatever hospital that they take him to. And right after that, it's okay, back in service. What's going on? Jesus. Oh, there's an auto burglary over here. I got to go take care of that. You have to
mentally turn off what you just experienced, which is traumatic.
Those things like that are really, there's more gruesome ones that I won't get into here, but you get the idea of these things come out when they come out. They're not, it's not a normal occurrence, but when they do, you have to respond. And then you have to be able to go and handle the civil dispute between a landlord and a tenant or an auto burglary that just happened. Yeah. Your business just got broken into.
Two people arguing about who's in line first at a McDonald's or whatever.
That happens. And then if you just had your place of business broken into, that's the most important thing to you. I understand that. Yeah. And then so when I show up here, especially after going through a call like that, I have to be able to turn off that first call and say, okay, Simon, this happened to you. Let me get the information. Yeah. And then it's a lot for people who do this year after year after year. It builds upon you. And then sometimes sometimes you can't get the officer that goes to your call and it's a lot to deal with. And, maybe the reaction isn't what you'd expect. And then that leads, because you don't know what he went through.
So you have experience where people are actually upset with you for whatever reason, or someone in the police force.
In general.
Because they feel like they're not getting a level of attention, or maybe you're the officer's a little late or whatever it may be.
That's a natural human reaction.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, there's about 800,000 sworn law enforcement personnel in the whole
It's a
country.
lot.
So even if 99% of us were
Yeah.
great, that's still 8,000 people where if they have one bad day, that
Yeah.
one time they see a call.
No,
and it just,
no one's perfect, man. You know, people need to understand that. Like, there are bad lawyers, and I've met a lot of bad lawyers. There probably are bad policemen. There are bad Jews, bad Christians, bad everybody. You name it. It's impossible to have a great person in every profession, in everything, and people need to understand that. And then what you mentioned earlier is people go through stuff. You know, what's interesting enough, what probably really relates to the podcast and your career in law enforcement is in the podcast, you could also have a bad day. Like, I've had a bad day one day, and I had a podcast to do. Within 20 minutes, I got some bad news on something. And I was like, gotta turn it on. Like, nobody gives a shit on that end that you're having a bad day, right? You still got to turn it on.
you got to turn it on.
PTSD, is it like a serious thing? Do you ever take it home with you where you go, hey, and you've talked about mental health on your podcast a lot. Is it a serious thing where you take it home with you in terms of what you saw that day? Or what do you do to cope with what you saw, like that guy on the wire, and move on from that? Maybe someone out there is struggling with something that may want to.
That can be very difficult because for me, the best way to deal with it is to go to the gym. And I think for a lot of guys, our therapy is something physical. We got to go to the gym. Some people don't understand that works. To me, that does work.
I agree with that.
That works better for me than sitting in front of a therapist, telling them all my problems. He doesn't care. She doesn't care. That doesn't help me. I need to do something physical to go out there and get that. Exactly. And the podcast is a very similar thing. We had talked about this being a good stress reliever for you.
Sure.
When you get to talk to somebody else about what they bring to the table, you start to remember all the good things that you want to put out there in the world. And that takes the place of maybe some of the traumatic things that you've seen recently. And to me, that